Hi guys, just want to run you through a sheet I keep on goal averages. The reason I keep this is I use it to check performance of things. So if things are going wrong or if things are going really well, this kind of keeps my head in the right place. It enables me just to look, see what's happening in each league, and see if there's anything that's affecting the results one way or the other, which can either curb my excitement if we're winning a load, or it can give me optimism if things are slowing down a little bit. So I'm just going to make the data a little bit bigger as we go. So this is basically the FTS data. This is my version. It goes back to 2017. The version we have on site goes back to 2020. I'm currently just keeping 2017 onwards, just so I can compare it, the COVID years to the years before and the years after. We've sort of got 2-3 years before, and now we'll have a couple of years after that we'll be able to see if there's any real significant impact that COVID had on these numbers, or if it was just a lot of noise and it all gets actually swallowed up in the normality of things. And it may well vary from league to league, which we'll talk you through. So I have the data, and then I've just basically built a sheet linked to each page of data. So every sheet is exactly the same as this. I'll just talk you through it. So this is the Austrian Bundesliga sheet. So it tells me how much of the current season has gone so far. It's got all the games on a season by season basis. So Austria has one of these leagues where they split now and play a relegation group and a European qualification group. So these are first phase games now. So in the database on FTS Advanced, you've got a column on the end now that says whether it's a first phase game or a second phase game. So leagues like Scotland, Austria, Denmark, they split that league, Belgium, to play these sort of mini round robin between the top half and the bottom half of the table, where the Premier League just have a 380 game straight season. There's no first or second phase. So that just enables me to see what the count of fixtures in that season, how many goals were in that season, and what that equates to goals per game. So column H there is the actual goals per game. We've got the total goals here in E4, which is 900 for that system, for that league. How many goals there is that those 900 games have generated, 2,688, and what the goals per game is 2.99. I've then got a 2-season mean, so this is just the mean average of the 2 seasons that preceded this one, and a 3-season mean. And you can see here in Austria currently, everything is a little bit lower this season than it was in previous seasons. So the blue line is the actual what's happening now. Green is our static number, how many average goals per game. Orange is the 2-season mean, and red is the 3-season mean. And then I've got the ability to input my Poisson model numbers up here, so I can change these numbers. So I've got them set on 2.76, but I can change them, and it will tell me how many games in the database in Austria have our goal model of 2.76, how many goals those generate, and what the average goals per game is for that model. So I'm able just to see how our model performs. I'm able to see the goals per game and see anything if there's any disparities. So every league is exactly the same. And if I go to the English Premier League, we can see here now we've got a blue sharp uptrend. So let me just again make that a bit bigger for you and talk you through it. So in the Premier League, we have a 380 game season. So this season we are 80 games in now, as we've hit this international break in October 23. That is 21%. So we've got 79-80% of the season to go. In those 2,360 Premier League games, we've got 6,543 goals, an average of 2.77 goals per game. So that's our static figure, which goes along that axis there, the green line. Then we then got league by league, how many goals per game. So in 2017-18, it's 2.68. You'll see we're currently at, for the first time in the Premier League, over 3 goals per game. It's bang on 3. It was actually over 3 in weeks 2, 3, 4, and it started to edge back down. There's a lot of talk in the Premier League at the minute about extra time being played at the end of matches. Is this going to lead to more goals? This will enable me to make an objective decision at that. At the moment, there are more goals, but we have only had 8 goals per game with the team. We are only 21% of the season through. So I fully expect that this blue line, our blue trend line here, will start to dive back down again at some stage. The 2-season mean is the orange line, the 3-season mean is the red line. The orange and blue will meet at some stage. So they'll either meet where over time this performance keeps up, so the mean will go higher and it will start to get up to the blue, or more likely is the goal numbers will start to fall slightly and blue will fall down. So you can see we sort of averaged 2.68, 2.82, 2.72, 69 in the COVID year, 82 in 21-22, 85 last season. As I say, we're up to 3. I would imagine we're probably going to be, there's not a massive deviation, a little bit from 18, 19, 62 down here, but I imagine we'll finish somewhere around this mark here, the 2.85, 2.9 is where I would like to say that we're going to be this season. When I put my model in, so you can see in games where both our models predict 2.76, we're making in those games, so there's actually 3.11 goals per game. So when I'm looking for goals in games, I can use these numbers, and as these numbers go up, are we seeing more goals in games? As we change that to 4, you see it goes up to 3.41. So that tells me, and this is really key, tells me that my model, when my model's predicting more goals, the matches it's predicting more goals in are actually having more goals. If I change that, it's really key. If I change that to 4 and this went down to 2.6, I basically have to start looking at my model or put it in the bin. Over the life of the whole database, as our model predicts more goals. So anybody can have a prediction model. Anybody can say, look at these numbers. You see them everywhere. You see people using XG. You see people using the market, whatever it may be. Anybody can have a model. What we want to know is when that model, over a period of time, we've got, I've got 30, how many games in this database now? 50,000 games. 51,000 games less 2 rows, so 51,233 games. So across this database, as my model predicts goals, so basically it looks at all the past data in this league, it says that's what I've got. It then goes for each team, that's what's happening in the matches that this team is playing, uses that information to predict an output for that team's next game. So let's say it was Tottenham Arsenal, it will come up with a predicted XG for the game that's being played at the weekend. Tottenham Arsenal is coming up on Saturday, Sunday. My model says 3.8 goals, whatever it may be. As that predicted number goes up in our database, we are actually seeing more goals. So it gives me the confidence to trade those games for goals where we've got a high model number. And if we've got a low model number, then I could trade the unders, back the unders, whatever it may be. But if this was all over the place, if we put this down to 2.2 and we've got 3.1 in cell R4 there, put it to 2.2 and that suddenly shot up to 4, then I'd know that my model was a load of rubbish. But as I increase my model numbers, as I increase the number of goals that we're predicting, then my model numbers go up. So when I want to trade over 2.5 goals, if I've got now a model here that's telling me, yes, in average we are, but my model is telling me actually it's 537 games in, which are averaging 3.1 goals per game. There'd be good games for you to trade over 2.5 goals. So we can look at that each morning and see. And there's other bits I add into that, of course, but I just want to highlight that model. And obviously it will vary for different games. So that's set at 2.76, and in the Premier League, it averages 3.11. In the English Championship, which is a lower goal scoring league. So if we make that one bigger. Oh, sorry, I've added sheets in, messed that up. So I'll go there, I'll sort that out in a minute. I meant to click that one, not new sheet. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do it without looking. So on my Championship one here, you can see if I set this at 2.76 over here. Apologies for that, just lost me way a little bit there, 2.76. In the Championship, you can see it still beats the mean in the Championship is 2.53 goals per game, our static number. It still beats it, but we've got less games there. We've only got 213 games in the Championship out of 3,400 that have got this. So in the Championship, we might not want to use 2.76. We might want to put these down to 2.5 or something like that, and treat each league slightly differently. So for those of you using advanced, a lot of the time I've talked about blanket numbers. The next phase of that is actually doing something like this and looking at individual leagues and saying, what is the sweet spot for that price on number in individual leagues, and accept that some leagues are just really hard to trade the goals. Don't just sit there trying to batter it away because it's got to do it. I'm just going to delete one of those extra sheets that I had while I do that, and then we'll just look at a couple of little seasons. Apologies for that. Delete that and delete that. Okay, so we can see in the Premier League, for example, we have got this shooting up. We've got this line shooting up, and it's very similar in Spain, where all of a sudden, I mean, Spain did average more goals in the Ronaldo-Messi years, and then Ronaldo and Messi left the league, particularly when they were both playing together, some years now since Ronaldo played in the Spanish league, and the goals went down, and this year they have shot up. We're back up to 2.91. So we've had 5-6 years averaging sort of around about 2.5 goals per game. We're now up to 2.91. So again, I'm really interested to see what happens here. My belief will be that this will start to drop down. But again, in the games where our price on model predicts 2.76 on each model, we're averaging 2.97. So again, good games to trade goals. So you can literally get your database in the morning, focus on that model number, and plot your trades around that. So is this a cause of this extra time? That is really where we're going to be going to look at over how this season pans out. Are these numbers going to drop down, or are these extra 5-6 minutes seeing more goals? And there'll be further analysis to do this, how many goals in extra time, and obviously how many actual goal minutes per game we're going to end up with come the end of the season. It's, as I say, people are very hasty to rush to conclusions without the full data, but I keep this going all the time. So as I say, I've always got a visual look. If we look at Germany as a league, pretty standard. So you see Germany, the sort of the four main leagues, Germany, and Italy a little bit more over the place. So Italy had 2 seasons in 1920 and 2021, the COVID years, where they generated more goals. So everybody was saying that the world's ending and goals aren't going to be scored and atmosphere. But Italy actually had their only 2 seasons out of the last 7, including this one, where they generated over 3 goals per game. They came in the COVID years. We've now gone, last year was a significant drop, a third of a goal a game, 2.87 down to 2.56, 0.3 goals per game drop. And this year it's stabilised around that number at 2.61. So is this the norm for Italy as it was pre-COVID in that sort of period, like 17, 18, 18, 19? Was this the anomaly here? And we've gone back, and now we're going to start trending around this line again. Again, the blue and the orange will meet these lines. The mean and the actual will always meet. But it just gives me that visual that I can go, actually, this might be a bit, when people go, oh, Italy, I'm not winning anything. Is it because we've actually had a couple of abnormal years there, and this is more that's normal? And if we look at France, again, France has seen a bit of a steady climb around 2020. So again, another league, was averaging 2.72 2017, went down to 2.5. COVID years, 2.76, 2.8, and it's pretty much stayed there, 2.82 this season. So it's almost bang on what it was last season, but we've only had 18% of the season, so we can see what's happening. But the one that I want to show you is Turkey, because we've had lots of talk of or draws in Turkey, people trying to lay the draw in Turkey, and it's hurting them. Turkey, as you can see this season, is on its lowest that it's ever been. It is on 2.61 goals per game. So its mean average is 2.83. Its average 2.96 in 17-18, went down to 2.6 in 18-19, then been pretty steady around 2.7, 2.8, shot up to 3 last season. But it's right back down at 2.61, the lowest it's ever been in the last 7 years is what is happening currently. But again, we're only 25% of the season in, I would expect that blue line to turn back up again, the numbers to start to go back up across as the season plays out. What happens when we have less goals in games? We have more draws. Obviously, the lower number of goals in games, the more results that can end in a draw. So if there's no goals in a game, the only result can be is 0-0. If it's 1-0, if there's one goal in the game, it can be 1-0, 0-1. But if there's two goals in the game, it can be 1-1, 2-0 or 0-2, so 33% of those could be a draw. As you put more goals into it, you get more score lines away from the draw. So if you have 6 goals in a game, obviously you can only have draw 3-3, but you can have 6-0, 5-1, 2-4, 4-2. So you get a lot more score lines out of those 6 goals that cannot be a draw compared to the one that can be a draw. So that 33% when it's 2 goals suddenly starts to evaporate as we add more goals in the game. So when we get less goals in a game, there is more chance you are going to land on a draw. So when I look at that and go, oh yeah, a lot of draws in Turkey, yeah, at the minute, because goals are down. Either that's going to stay there, and I think when we last looked at it, draws are about 40%. I've said there's no way they'll stay there. They'll go back up. I'm fairly confident that this number will start to get above and up towards this green line over the course of football. These leagues are pretty consistent when you look at them in a whole. When you look at sort of the Dutch Eredivisie, for example, look how all the lines go together. Dutch Eerste, a little bit up and down, but everything kind of runs within 0.1 of a goal, 0.15 of a goal. The Championship, look how everything's together, a little blip away from it, but everything tends to be pretty consistent. There's always the odd one, as I say, Italy, that big arch in the middle, and we'll see why. You'll soon be able to determine why that is and what is the norm for that league over a period of time. The Segunda was one last year. It took literally until the end of the season. So currently it's averaging 2.34, which is kind of more in line with the years past. But last season, for a long time, it was down at 1.8, 1.9. And I said it will definitely not finish less than 2 goals per game. I was really confident. I was saying that from sort of November, December, and it went to 2.02. It just tipped over. I just got there in the end, ended up not looking completely stupid. But again, that 2.02, it's had 2 seasons out of the last 4, 2.05 and 2.02, but it tends to average around about 2.3 goals per game. 2.23 is the total. Again, when we've got our Poisson, you see how few Poisson numbers, model numbers, we've got there only 104 games out of 2,860. We're 2.76. So you might want to lower that number if you're looking at that league, or leave the league alone altogether. We know that the French League 2 and Segunda are 2 that are low numbers, only 2.38 goals per game in French League 2. You may want to, I say you may want to bet the unders, but they're priced accordingly. We're not the only people who know that this is only averaging 2.38 goals per game. So you really want to use that model to try and find the discrepancies on a day-to-day basis. But just a little bit of info. It's just something I keep that we'll look to share a bit more of, to show you how the goals vary. There isn't just this straight line across. Some leagues are very consistent, but some of the other leagues you do see that things go up and down. So German Bundesliga 2 at the moment, for the first time ever, over 3.1 goals. Will that continue? Again, only 20% of the season, 26% of the season gone. I keep exactly the same for first half goals. This one gets a little bit more volatile. And if we go to German Bundesliga 2, the one I'm looking at, we can see first half goals there are just slightly up, but again, exactly the same. So if you're betting in the first half goal market, it's Portugal shooting up to the highest it's ever been. Expect it to come down. So again, if you I had an email, I think the other day, somebody, I've lost, I've been doing first half goals, I'm getting beat up. But if you look at the Premier League, we see goals are up overall, but they're down in the first half. Now, is that because we're getting goals are up overall because we're getting this extra time at the end of the game and we're not getting it in the first half? Time will tell. League One, goals well down, so we can expect League One down to nearly 1.07 goals in the first half. It's never been that low, so we could expect an upturn in first half goals in League One when football resumes over time. So in effect, what all this does is I update it every week. It causes me not to panic. I can usually go in, and if I'm struggling in a particular league, but I'm doing well in a particular league, I can have a look and kind of go, yeah, well, actually, that's underperforming or overperforming. I can expect it to get back to those mean numbers or somewhere around them. And of course, you'll have the odd season when things don't. As I've just shown you with Italy, we've got that loop, two seasons there. But so if you built systems built on those 2 seasons, you may be seeing a difference in your results now. But even then, you're able to highlight it and go, well, actually, those 2 seasons, now I look at it, aren't normal. I need to tweak what I'm doing slightly. So it kind of serves as that for me, and it helps me, as I say, with that on the main sheet, with that model number. It enables me to look at what is my actual model doing when I predict high goals. Am I actually getting higher goals? Do I need to put the model up? So if I go into the Championship, for example, where we got 2.76, well, let's put that up to 4. Look, we get 3.29 goals per game, but we've only got 14 games in the Championship where my models predicted that. So if there is one that pops up, you may go, actually, these look really nailed on for goals. I might have a trade of that. And that enables me to target games when I see the model numbers every day. But I'm happy that by doing this, I can see that the higher my model number, when I put it up, when I increase it, that the goals per game goes up. So my model's predicting goals and the actual goals those games are having, and I can spot any anomalies in the data that we're getting in from these football matches and what's actually happening now that cause us not to panic or not to overreact to wins just as much, not to think, oh, I've got the holy grail, everything's flying in. You can almost certainly expect a downturn and a levelling out period if we look at this and go, in the Premier League, for example, will that continue? We've never, ever in the last 7 years seen 3 goals per game. Is this going to be the first? It may well be, but I'll be more inclined at the minute to think we're going to fall probably back in line with this 2.8, 2.9 number, somewhere around about then. So I hope you found this useful. Feel free to drop us any questions, support@ftsincome.co.uk. And if you'd like me to cover more stuff like this, subscribe, let me know in the comments, and I can make more videos like this. Okay, take it easy.